It's interesting that we're live, even though YouTube is telling me that there's no stream data. But hopefully it's confused and we're actually live and fine. For the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we've reviewed already the life lessons from the family tree of Manu Shatarupa. Now we're reviewing the story of Shiva and Sati. And we got to the point where she committed suicide. So, we pick up the story there. If you want the backstory, they're all recorded, and you can go back and watch them from the channel page. They'll pick up the story from Rudra's rage. The divine sage Narada rushed to Shiva and informed him of Daksha's contemptuous behavior. Your wife has been destroyed, he said, and your fiends have been scattered by a host of Ribu, summoned from the sacrificial fire. So you didn't have Instagram and stuff, but you don't really need it when you have people like Narada Muni, who can travel very quickly and find out all the news and deliver it to the person who needs to hear it. So right away, Rudra gets the information about what happened at the sacrifice. Hearing this, Shiva bit his lips furiously. Personal disrespect and abuse he could tolerate endlessly, but disrespect and abuse of his beloved he could not abide for a moment. Now that is a very, 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 very significant statement. This is true for Shiva. It's true for anybody who is very elevated. And you should be careful of this. We should be careful of this because, like as this whole story is showing, you do not want to mistreat anybody. But mistreatment towards people who are mistreating others is kind of forgivable, kind of understandable. But mistreatment of people who are innocent, and mistreatment of people who are even more than innocent, who are gracious and positive and do good for the society and for the world, is the worst thing that you can possibly do. So you don't want to mistreat very elevated people. But the thing about them is that they don't seem very mistreatable because they're so tolerant. But the one thing that they do not tolerate is mistreatment of the people that they care about. They will tolerate mistreatment to themselves, but they won't tolerate mistreatment of people that they care about. This is why if you go to a temple or something and you fancy yourself a bhakta devotee of the deity of the temple and you treat the people who are running the temple in a negative way, it's very suspicious. This is why if you claim that you love God, but you treat all of the creations of God poorly, it's very suspicious. You have to be careful. You have to think about this principle. That people who love other people are very good. You don't want to insult them. And actually insulting them, they don't care. But if you insult the people that they love, they care a lot. So this is the point. Hearing this, Shiva bit his lip furiously. Personal disrespect and abuse he could tolerate endlessly. But disrespect and abuse of his beloved he could not abide for a moment. His rage erupted, causing his matted hair to blaze like lightning and flame as he transformed into the personification of anger. He leapt to his feet, tore out a strand of matted hair. I could probably just say tore out a mat of hair, and threw it to the ground with wicked laughter and howling vengeance. This is a great scene. I would love to see this one visualized. When his hair struck the ground, a black creature arose so huge that it seemed to touch the stars with its back. Its 3 eyes blazed like suns. Its hair was raging flame. Its horrific fangs loomed behind necklaces of skulls, bordered by thousands of arms brandishing thousands of weapons. Slowly, submissively, it turned to the powerful lord of monsters and asked, "Who am I? What would you have me do?" "You are me," Shiva declared with blazing eyes. "You are Rudra." So he's called forth the aspect of himself, of Rudra, just the pure anger from his hair. He called forth the aspect of himself, Rudra. So when this big gigantic Rudra says, "Who am I?" he says, "You're me. And what do you want? What should you do? Lead my warriors now. Destroy Daksha and his sacrifice." Huge Rudra respectfully circumambulated the great god of gods and then, full of confidence in its destructive abilities, rushed towards Daksha's sacrifice, leading an army of monsters, like a blazing comet leading a trail of flame. Wielding a trident forged of death's death, he roared his voracious thirst for destruction. Even the anklets on his feet roared ferociously. Good stuff. Are you imagining it? Hopefully you're imagining it. It's really good visualization. Now, let's see what happens next. Darkness suddenly descended upon Daksha's ceremony from afar. "Why does night fall?" people worried. "It is not yet dusk." Looking towards the horizon, they discovered a dust storm approaching swiftly from the north. What raises this portentous destructive storm? What sends it ominously towards us? It cannot be the weather, for there is no wind. It cannot be pirates, because King Prachinibar, he enforces law. It cannot be a stampede, for there are no big herds of animals left near the sacrifice. Daksha's wife, Prasuti, who had been weeping horribly with her daughters since Sati's sudden death, pointed angrily at her husband and shouted to the assembly, "The storm comes because of this man's wickedness. This man, this so-called forefather, ruthlessly dishonored his own daughter, faultless Sati, while all of us, including his sisters, had to bear witness. That wicked deed is what drives the storm towards us. And when it arrives," she foretold in dire, terrifying tones, "utter destruction will erupt." Why does this doom descend upon us? Because this man angered Shiva. What fool would anger Shiva? When Shiva's anger scatters his hair, he becomes Rudra, the barbs of whose trident impale even the protectors of the dimensions. Space itself crumbles from the echoes of his wild, thunderously loud laughter while he dances with his fearsome weapons. It is impossible to survive Rudra's anger, even for the Creator himself. When Rudra furrows his brow and bares his fangs, even the sun, moon, planets, and stars crumble and disintegrate. We have stood by and allowed this vile man to insult and anger Shiva. Nothing but destruction awaits us now. The assembly, full of terrified eyes, agreed with Prasuti. Powerful Daksha cowered in fear as the storm fell upon them, revealing itself to be thousands of terrible monsters, enveloping them from all sides, even from above and below. These fiends had reddish scales and jaws of yellow fangs like legendary crocodiles. Swiftly and unchallenged, they stormed the huge sacrificial arena, surrounding everyone and destroying everything. They tore down the beams and pillars of the arena's four quarters. They ripped apart the sacred boundary markers, shattered the offering pots, and extinguished the sacrificial fires by pissing on the altars. They arrested the sages and howled, "So many widows will wander from this spot like ghosts." Not even the gods could escape. Rudra's generals arrested Pusha, Bhaga, and Brigu, while the rest of the fiends rounded up the fleeing priests and gleefully, viciously stoned them. Rudra then strode before Brigu and said, "While you poured oblations into the fire, people warned you not to exclude Shiva. You just smiled and pompously and proudly You just smiled pompously and proudly stroked your beard. Taking hold of Brigu's beard, Rudra tore it off in one horrible motion. He then came before Bhaga, who fell to the ground in fear. When Daksha ridiculed and cursed me, you encouraged him with your happy eyes. Taking Bhaga's head in his vice-like grip, Rudra gouged out his eyes. Then he came before Pusha. You too encouraged my accursed cursor with your beautiful smile. Rudra's fist knocked every tooth from Pusha's mouth, just as Balaram did to the king of Kalinga. Finally, Rudra strode before Daksha. And you, he taunted, you like to sacrifice animals. So I will give you a first-hand experience of that thrill from the other side of the knife. Then, drawing a cold, bright blade, he knocked the Prajapati to the ground, sat on his chest, and sliced his neck. To everyone's surprise, Daksha's head did not roll. The three-eyed destroyer drew a different sword, but to no avail. He drew an axe, a dagger, but nothing would even scratch the skin on Daksha's neck. Nothing could penetrate the armor of Daksha's powerful magic. The Lord of Creatures glanced around the arena in exasperation, and his eyes happened to fall on the altar, where Daksha had sacrificed so many creatures. Dragging the protesting Prajapati there, he placed Daksha's neck upon the chopping block. Knowing his magic armor would fail there, in the exact spot he deserved to die. There, Rudra ferociously sacrificed the sacrificer by tearing his head from his body. Carrying the blood-dripping head to the sputtering southern fire, Rudra ceremoniously offered it into the sacred flame. Receiving Daksha's head, the fire exploded into an inferno that tore through the sacrificial arena. Everyone fled, crying, "This is horrible!" But Rudra's warlocks, ghouls, and monsters cheered and danced, "Sadhu, sadhu, a great deed is done." When the entire arena had been reduced to ash, Rudra and his retinue returned to their invisible, hidden realm. Epic scene. Super epic. Any questions about it? This is good stuff, right? Why do we love this? Because Rudra is just. Why do we love violence? What is that? Why do we love this? We like justice. If you understand this story, you can understand Ardra Nakshatra and the sutra for Ardra Nakshatra. This is the proper. Anger has a purpose. Violence is misuse of anger. But punishment has a purpose. Anger has a purpose. What is the purpose? Anger is the feeling that some injustice has been done. That's the reaction to it. We've been wronged, or someone has been wronged. The reaction to that is anger. And the anubhav, or the thing which is impelled from anger, is retribution, which is justice. And that's good. That's why we like to read this story. May all the evil people in the world face the wrath of Rudra. Next chapter, the gods apologize. Trembling in fear and covered in wounds, the gods, priests, and guests fled to self-born Brahma. So they ran from this ceremony to Brahma. Brahma did not need to hear their story or examine their thousands of wounds. He had foreseen everything, and that is why neither he nor Narayan, the soul of all, had attended Daksha's ceremony. You have destroyed yourselves and put your very lives in jeopardy by insulting a powerful being, he explained. And remember, how did they insult the powerful being? This did not happen when Daksha literally insulted Shiva. This happened when Daksha insulted Sati, who Shiva loves. So be careful about how you treat people and things which are loved by the strong one, by the one you don't want to insult, or by the beloved one. And if you want to see if somebody really loves you, then see how they treat the things that you love, or see how they think about the things that you love. If somebody really loves you, then they love the things that you love even more than you, because those things give you pleasure and happiness. And that's what their objective is. So they love those things. Those things become even more important to them than you. That's real love. You have destroyed yourselves and put your very lives in jeopardy by insulting a powerful being, he explained. If the Lord of existence, Shiva, is angry, the worlds and their masters cannot hope to survive. You dishonored him by excluding him from his portion of the ceremony's opulence. How then can you even hope to survive and prosper? You robbed him of his beloved wife and pained his heart with foul insults. What hope do you have? Your only hope is to seek his merciful forgiveness. Indeed, he is famous for being merciful towards those who apologize. Why should anger be placated by apology? Because anger results in retribution, whose goal is justice. Apology is the affectation of justice, reformation. So apology achieves the same ends as the justice or the punishment, reformation. So it will placate the anger. So the one who's the personification of anger can also be placated by apology, but the apology must be real. It must result in reformation. You robbed him of his... Okay, your only hope is to seek his merciful forgiveness. Indeed, he is famous for being merciful towards those who apologize. Apologize immediately with complete and utter sincerity. Immediately, completely, sincerely. That means you're reformed. Then you might also beg him to restore the lives that were lost at the ceremony. After the person is placated, then you can ask for some mercy. Some relenting on the punishment, and they'll agree because the punishment is unnecessary now. Some of the punishment is still necessary to set the standard for others, however. So some of the punishment will usually often remain. There is no other option, Brahma explained. Any other course of action will prove disastrous, for no one can even comprehend the extent of his self-generated power and might. Not I, not Yajna, and not any of you who exist in bodies, be you gods or be you sages. The gods hesitated. Excuse me. Yawning time. The gods hesitated, first out of embarrassment, but later out of fear. Rising from his seat, Brahma consoled them, "Fear not, I will come with you." So first hesitation on apology is embarrassment or ego. You don't want to admit that we were the one that was wrong. The second hesitation on apology is fear. What if I humiliate myself by apologizing, but it still doesn't work? They still kill me, or they still punish me, or they still hate me. So this is the two hesitations on apology. So Brahma then consoles them. He rises up from his seat and he says, "Fear not, I will come with you. I'll help you do this." Followed by the ancestral Pitri and the progenitors, Brahma led them to the great Mount Kailash, the beloved home of the powerful Prabhu, who is an enemy of cities. So apparently the gods have never seen Kailash before. And so Kailash is well beyond Swarga, where the gods reside. Brahma has to take them there. Now you get a description of Kailash. Let me see. Any questions or anything? Luisa, thank you. It's common though. I was actually just taught this in this community of sadhus who teach these things. This is a very, very ubiquitous lesson. Good quote, Ayush. Sati did not kill herself. I mean, she did kill herself, but justly in response. You have to read this if you think that she's at fault and you're crazy, and you have to go back and listen to the story again. Okay. Wondrous Kailash. Kailash was a paradise of fantastic natural beauty, resounding with the kirtan of its inhabitants, who constantly purify their births by perfectly disciplined mantra yoga, augmented by the most talented singers, musicians, and dancers. That's very interesting. The whole of Kailash is saturated in kirtan. Kirtan is the mantra yoga through music and dance. And the footnote on this is that the singers are the Kinnara and the musicians are the Gandharva and the dancers are the Apsara. So they literally have the best singers, dancers, and musicians in the universe doing kirtan in Kailash, and that's the sound that permeates the whole place. But it's not a monastery setting at all. So kirtan is not synonymous with austerity. Kirtan is synonymous with celebration, kirti. So you're not going to find Kailash as an austere place. Shiva is the master yogi. What's going on with this Kailash? It's not austere. It's very opulent. These are mind benders. Myriad jewels and minerals ornament the mountain. Myriad trees, vines, and shrubs shelter herds of myriad forest creatures. Myriad pure springs flow amongst myriad summits and grottos where perfected women playfully delight with their delighters. Peacock calls resound. Blindly intoxicated bees hum. Red-throated cuckoos sing. Lovebirds whisper. The mountain itself seems to embrace these birds with the outstretched branches of its wish-fulfilling trees. The mountain itself seems to walk when its herds of elephants move about. The mountain itself seems to talk when its rivers murmur. So many precious trees call this mountain their home, producing so many exotic flowers, fruits, nuts, spices, and delightful shade. Lakes decorated with red, blue, and white lotuses adorn these forests. Their sandy lake shores host both wild and peaceful animals who drink and relax together while flocks of birds sing nearby. The Nanda River flows all around, its water sanctified because Sati used to bathe in it. The gods were awestruck to see the beautiful mountain of the Lord of Monsters. This is their mind melting. This is the guy that supposedly has dreadlocks, no, he doesn't comb his hair, doesn't wear clothes, puts cremation ashes on his body, wears a necklace of skulls, eats from a skull, Lord of Monsters. What does he do? We went to his house and we expected to see Glenn Danzig's haunted house. We expected to see some witch's house. And here, look at this paradise that we wound up in. Mindbender. Maybe you misunderstood this person. Maybe you misunderstood yoga. Maybe you misunderstood kirtan. Maybe you misunderstood spirituality. Is anybody home? The gods were awestruck to see the beautiful mountain of the Lord of Monsters. Hidden in a forest where the most fragrant lotus flowers grew, they found a delightful city named Alaka, home of the Yaksha lord Kuvera. So Kuvera is Shiva's nephew or cousin or something. They're related and they're best friends. And so Shiva invited Kuvera to live in Kailash. And Kuvera made a city. Kuvera is the lord of wealth. Duh. Hello. Are you getting it? They found a delightful city named Alaka, home of the Yaksha lord Kuvera. 2 rivers, the rivers are named Nanda and Alakananda. 2 rivers bordered that city. Their extremely sacred waters carrying pollen dust from the lotus-like feet of the most sacred being. Heaven's goddesses descend into pools within these rivers when they are tired of lovemaking, and playfully splash their men with the water. Lovemaking, what is going on? There's jewels, there's birds, there's peacocks, there's lotus flowers, the god of wealth. Lovemaking. I thought this was yoga. I thought this was kirtan. Maybe you're a little bit like these gods that had no idea who Shiva was either. Their fresh kumkum powder washes away and makes the water golden red, attracting elephant couples to drink the fragrant and beautiful water even when they're not thirsty. The city seemed like the sky. Its glittering clouds were really hosts of vehicles, decorated with pearls, gold, and great jewels. The dazzling glitter of those clouds was really the brilliant beauty of sacred goddesses who traveled in those vehicles. Venturing further up the mountain, they wandered through an incredibly fragrant forest, admiring the enchanting flowers, fruits, and leaves of the wish-fulfilling trees. Red-throated cuckoos made beautiful songs, while bees hummed around lotus flowers, and love-struck swan couples danced between the stems of lotus flowers. The lakes in that forest were bordered by steps of dazzling cat's-eye jewels, and had neat rows of lotus flowers tended by King Purusha couples. You'll find in India, the rich people, and to some extent even like upper middle class, they'll put marble all over their house. But these lakes in Kailash, they have the steps going into the lakes, and they're not made of sandstone. They're not even made of marble. They're made of cat's eye, tiger's eye, semi-precious stone. The lakes in that forest were bordered by steps of dazzling cat's eye jewels and had neat rows of lotus flowers tended by singing Kimpurusha couples. Forest elephants brushed against the trees, filling the breezes with the fragrance of sandalwood. Because sandalwood you have to rub, and then when you rub the sandalwood, you smell it. So the elephants rub against the trees and make the sandalwood breeze fill everything up. This breeze enlivens the sacred goddesses bathing in the rivers and lakes and renews their appetite for lovemaking. Here it is again, lovemaking. This is Shiva's home. What is going on? You are very surprised, because I was very surprised. Especially if you are coming from the crew that thinks the more you are skinny and don't eat anything, and don't touch anything, and don't smell anything, and certainly don't have any sex, then the more spiritual you are, it's definitely going to make your brain hurt a little bit. And you'll try to come up with all kinds of somersaulting explanations. Why Kailash, where the supreme yogi lives, is like this. And all of this is happening as kirtan is going on. So this might also change you also might be confused about kirtan. Maybe it's good to be confused. It might spur some evolution. Now, peaceful Shiva, far past all this, the gods finally saw an enormous, immovable banyan tree, hundreds of miles tall. Its nestless branches spread 3/4 as wide, casting unbroken cooling shade everywhere. It was the perfect shelter for great yogis seeking liberation. So finally, past the city and everything, past the forest, they finally see this supreme tree on the mountain. And they found Shiva seated at its base. The gods were as fearful of him as they were of death itself. But it was immediately clear to them that he had given up all his anger. Indeed, he was the very embodiment of peace and calm. He sat attended by the 4 famous sages, his elder brothers, as well as his friend Kuvera. I should probably spell it with the V to be consistent. Lord of the Raksha. Although he is a supreme master, he continued to engage in the yoga of study and self-discipline because he is affectionate and friendly to everyone and desires to make the world a more auspicious place. He was the ideal renunciate, with matted hair, carrying a staff, and wearing only a deerskin. His own skin was sunset red. I don't know why. Everybody paints Shiva as blue-black. But all the descriptions of Shiva in the actual Puranas and Vedas are that he's red. I don't know what happened to people's literacy. His own skin was sunset red, covered in cloudy ash, and his crown was a crescent moon. I mean, occasionally he's even described with other colors, sometimes black, sometimes white, but he's almost always described as red. I mean, you almost never see him depicted as red. So here, let's get back to this. He was the ideal renunciate with matted hair, carrying a staff and wearing only a deerskin. His own skin was sunset red, covered in cloudy ash. Sunset red, covered in cloudy ash. And his crown was a crescent moon. Sunset red, cloudy ash, crescent moon. He sat on a mat of sacred dharma grass and explained the eternal Vedic wisdom to Narada, who was asking questions. Narada Muni is asking questions. He sat on a mat of sacred dharma grass and explained the eternal Vedic wisdom to Narada, who was asking questions while the other sages listened attentively. On his right thigh, he had placed his left lotus-like foot. So someone is missing from this situation. And that's Sati. When this is mentioned, it calls to attention that someone's missing because she's always seated on that thigh. And sometimes less developed spiritualists who come to inquire from Shiva, they can't handle all of this, actually. They can't handle all the love-making and peacocks. And even Shiva is sitting at the base of his banyan tree with his wife sitting right on his lap. Can you please be a little bit more like a stereotypical spiritualist? It makes them nuts sometimes. So some of them actually complain about it. And then they usually get cursed by Parvati. So anyway, she's not there right now because she has not reformed her body yet. On his right thigh, he placed his left lotus-like foot, and his left hand rested on his left knee. His right arm, decorated with aksha beads, was raised on a small cane, and his hand displayed the mudra of logic. He was deeply immersed in perfect contemplation on spiritual bliss. The gods approached, folding their hands to offer pranam to the original sage of all sages. He is the Lord whose feet are venerated by both gods and demons, but when he saw self-born Brahma arrive, he stood up and bowed his head in great respect. After all, he was Brahma's son and should show Brahma respect, just as Vishnu, as Vamana, shows respect to his father Kashyapa. Footnote: unlike Daksha, Brahma was not riddled with vanity. Therefore, Shiva happily made an external display of respect. Remember the beginning of the whole story? Daksha walks in to a ceremony. Shiva doesn't stand up. But Daksha is Shiva's father-in-law. That's what made Daksha so insulted that he decided he was going to hate Shiva. And he claimed that he doesn't have any sense of culture or manners. But now, Brahma, who is Shiva's father, because Shiva was produced from his anger. Shiva's avatar comes through. This is another important point. Shiva's avatar comes through Brahma's anger. So in that sense, Brahma is Shiva's father. And therefore, when Brahma comes in, Shiva, who is the focal point of the whole Kailash, and he's the god of the whole place, he stands up and bows to Brahma because he's his father. So this shows, and this is what Shiva explained to Sati. If somebody is an externalist, don't show them external respect. Show them internal respect. Pay them respect internally, but don't show them external respect because respect will only make them worse. It will only inflate their ego. But Brahma, who doesn't have that problem, he gets external respect from Shiva. And another thing about this, mentioning Vishnu and Kashyapa shows that we should not fear Brahma to be truly superior to Shiva. So avatars come into the Tara. They come in here. They cross in by some vehicle, some mother and father. So some beings play the role of the mother and father to the avatar. And then the avatar will treat them accordingly. But it doesn't mean that they're actually ontologically superior to the avatar. Same way Shiva is produced from Brahma's anger, but it doesn't mean that that Brahma is actually superior to Shiva, that he's actually Shiva's father. Shiva's avatar comes through Brahma's anger. All the other perfected souls and great sages surrounding Shiva also paid their respectful namaskar to Brahma. With a happy face, Brahma offered his respectful pranam to the moon-crowned Shiva and then began to speak. I know you as the master of the universe, the womb and seed of everything, Shakti and Shiva. And beyond this, I know you as the Supreme Eternal Spirit. Your intrinsic form, the Shiva-Shakti unit, is certainly the all-attractive one who creates, maintains, and destroys everything, like a spider using and retracting her web. It is you who utilizes Daksha to establish sacrifices as the best method of attaining prosperity in a moral way. It is you who create the social regulations that Brahmanas believe in and follow very strictly. Auspicious Master, you reward these auspicious deeds with heaven, liberation, and your own association, and you reward inauspicious deeds by covering them in darkness. I am wondering why you suddenly decided to do just the opposite, punishing Daksha and the Brahmanas who were engaged in sacrifice. I know it was not due to anger. Even your followers do not succumb easily to animalistic anger. Anyone who gives themselves wholly to your feet clearly sees you in all living beings, so it is very difficult to make them angry at anyone. Ordinary people anger easily and often. They see differences between living beings and are therefore obsessed with their own separate interests. Thus, when others prosper, they become angry and cruel, and they say vile things to hurt and undermine those they envy. Daksha behaved like an ordinary person, angry at you for what he considered to be an insult to his pride. You punished him for it, but I wonder why. Do such people really need to be punished? Or do their own deeds create their doom? The minds of separatists are bewildered and confused by trying to embrace the magic of Vishnu without Vishnu. When these confused people say and do their vile, selfish things, good souls feel compassion and show forgiveness, knowing they are merely in the powerful grip of their own destinies. Nothing bewilders you, Brahma continued. Neither anger nor the externals of Vishnu's magic. Your intellect sees everyone clearly. So why not show your compassion to these soulless fools, obsessed with their own ambitions? The faulty man who conducted that sacrifice did not dedicate a portion of it to you, although you are the one who bestows the results of all sacrifices. Respectable one, why not show compassion to him by restoring the sacrifice you destroyed and accepting whatever remains there as an offering unto you? Why not forgive them all? Restore Daksha's life, Bhaga's sight, Brigu's beard, and Pusha's teeth. Why not heal the bones of the gods and priests broken by your stones and weapons? Then let Rudra, who destroyed the sacrifice, accept whatever remains there as his sacrificial portion. Seeing Shiva agreeable, Brahma continued, let's do this together right now. Smiling and wholly satisfied with unborn Brahma's advice, the greatest of gods replied, from now on, I will not speak or even think. of the wrongs done by childish people who are simply creatures of divine illusion. I will no longer punish them. The progenitor's head has been burnt, but let him have a head from a goat. Let Bhaga see through Mitra's eyes, so he can continue to look upon the rewards he desires. Let Pusha eat mash, and eat through the person performing a sacrifice. Let the gods who wanted to include me in the sacrifice have all their bones restored. And as for the priests and others, let those whose arms have been torn off use Ashwini's arms. And let those whose hands have been cut off use Pusha's hands. Let Bhrigu have a goat's beard. The gods and sages agreed, saying, Sadhu, sadhu. Satisfied at heart that Shiva had generously forgiven them, they, him, and Brahma to return with them to their sacrificial arena. What is that supposed to say? Satisfied at heart that Shiva had generously... They encouraged him and Brahma to return with them to the sacrificial arena. Requested. All right. So that's the end of what we have for today. We're going to do next week with restoring the sacrifice. Any questions? So that was chapter 5 and 6. Has Shiva mastered pain as well? What is pain? Pain is negative sensation. Every yogi will consider pain and pleasure as two sensations. One is positive, one is negative. One tells you to go towards and one tells you to go away. Pain says go away and pleasure says go towards. Every yogi, however, doesn't move. Yogis are immovable. So every yogi is mastered both pleasure and pain. And you can't master one without mastering the other. Why is it mentioned so many times about hands and feet? Well, there's so many injuries, right? When Rudra and his army of fiends attacked the ceremony, they wrecked people, like brutally wrecked people. So Bhrigo's beard got torn off, Pusha's teeth got knocked out, Bhaga's eyes got ripped out. All the priests got stoned. They got their arms broken, legs broken. The gods got cut and ripped, and their hands torn off, feet torn off, broken. All kinds of really angry retribution was going on. So now that the gods came to Shiva and apologized with Brahma, Shiva said, okay, I'm not angry anymore anyway, right? He was already not angry anymore. But he says, look, I'm not angry with you. I promise I'm not going to punish you anymore. Then he says, and then they say, well, can you help us fix up stuff? So he says, well, you guys did wrong. This is expanded. You guys did wrong. It shouldn't just be erased. Nobody should act like you didn't do wrong. So, for example, if you steal my money and then you apologize, I'm giving back the money. It's good, but we shouldn't pretend that it didn't happen. It happened, and you reformed from it. It's not that it didn't happen, and you were always great. So you have to be aware that this person is capable of doing this, and that mark they have to carry that mark. You can't just get away with things by apologizing for them, even if your apology is sincere. So therefore, he doesn't just say, okay, let's just rewind time and give everything back. I'll just pull Daksha's head back out of the fire somehow, put it back on him. I'll get some eyes and I'll put him back. Let's give Mitra back his eyes. Let's give Bhrigu back his beard. No, you guys apologize so you're forgiven. So you should be restored, but not all the way. Yeah. So Daksha needs to live again. That's the basic indication that he's reformed, so he can live again. But his head is gone. I ripped off his head. So he's not going to walk around without a head. You can't live without a head. We'll give him a goat's head. I will give him a goat's head. Like that. Bugger doesn't have any eyes. That's okay. He can see with Mitra. He'll be able to connect to Mitra's nervous system and see through Mitra's eyes. Pusha doesn't have any teeth. That's okay. He can really enjoy porridge. And also, he can eat what the person sacrificing to him eats. He'll be connected like that. So this way, he gives back the things to the people, but not entirely. So the forgiveness shouldn't really be so to the point that it is forgotten. Forgive and forget is pretty stupid. Forgive is good. Forgive and forget is dumb. Don't forget what people have done. And so that you don't forget, there should be a little mark left on the person that they did this and they got punished for it. Bardo's now asking about Sati. So Sati returned to Shiva only after the balance between creation and destruction has been restored. No, you're reading too much into it, as usual. There was no imbalance between creation and destruction. And what's the role of Vishnu in this story? He's not in the story. He's not in the story. Except that actually he's going to come into the story later. Because the ceremony is being performed to Vishnu. So he's going to come to this story in the next chapter. Sati does not return because it takes a moment to restructure a body. And then she has to walk from where she was to where Shiva is. And there's a little bit of disorientation when you first remanifest the body. So you'll find out at the end of the next chapter that Sati, after destroying the body that she got as Daksha's daughter, she manifested her self-manifest body technically from the mountains and the earth. And then so she emerged from the mountains and earth and then found her way to Shiva, found her way to Kailash. Yes, we're doing the whole fourth canto. I find it so difficult to stop anger that comes from pain and profound sadness. It's like a force of nature. Seems way more difficult to manage than Daksha's cruel vanity, which is kind of rational. Oh, why did it stop? Oh, okay. Anger and sadness and pain are very close together. I mean, when you feel anger, you ask what's causing it. Or when you feel sadness or pain, ask what's causing it. Because there are things called anubhavs, which is things that should result from emotions and sensations. So, for example, when you feel pain, your brain automatically asks the nervous system, where's it coming from? And then it checks that situation. So if you feel pain, the brain will say, where's it coming from? And then the nervous system replies, it's in your right hand. And then the brain will check the right hand and see, oh my God, it's touching the stove. Then it will move it away. If the nervous system doesn't ask where's the pain coming from, it's not going to be effective in stopping the damage that the pain is indicating. So similarly, when you feel sadness or anger, you have to think, where is this coming from? Sadness will come from it comes from the feeling that something has been, that you have lost something which you need and deserve. Or actually, maybe not even deserve. Deserve blends to anger. But that you've lost something which you need. Specifically, it's like when you lost something that makes you, you. Then you feel sadness. Sadness and anger have a blurry line between them because usually that losing of something can also coincide with somebody taking it from you. And the anger is the feeling that you have been wronged or a wrong has been done. The result of sadness should be to reconstitute, so to heal. The result of sadness, the anubhav of sadness, is to reconstitute and heal. Something has been taken from you which made you who you are. You have to regrow the self and restore the thing. That's the result of sadness. The result of anger is somebody has done something wrong. You have to correct them, punish them, stop them, destroy them. So that's why anger leads to action. Sadness doesn't. Sadness leads to rest. Because sadness requires restoration. But anger requires retribution. So you have to think, when you feel sad or angry, you have to think what's causing it. If you don't think what's causing it, it's going to perpetuate. Just like if your nervous system doesn't tell your brain the pain is coming from your hand, then the pain is going to perpetuate because the body is not going to realize it needs to take the hand off the stove. So sadness and anger will perpetuate and magnify and increase until you do the right thing about them. Most of the times we think, sadness and anger is so, I just wish they would go away. I wish I didn't have them. They won't go away. They're there telling you to do something about them. Like everything else in the world, it's stimulus response. Pain, anger, and sadness are stimulus that deserve the correct response. Now, when you analyze the source of the sadness and anger, you should think, is this based on truth or is this based on my ignorance? Does this thing which was taken from me, which makes me me, does that really make me me? Is my dependence really dependent upon that thing? If it's maybe the real cure is not just to reconstitute or bring back a thing, but to remove the ignorance which made you think that you needed that thing. Similarly with anger, when you consider what is the source of the anger, you have to evaluate also, now, am I right or wrong about how I'm feeling? I feel that this person has wronged me. Am I right or wrong? Like Daksha felt that Shiva wronged him. Daksha was wrong. Because he was full of vanity and pride, he did not deserve an external respect. However, Shiva respected him internally. Daksha should have reflected upon that he was acting like a pompous idiot. And so shouldn't be angry at an insult. And then he should let go of the anger. But Shiva was right in his anger. Daksha's pompous idiocy caused his wife so much pain that she killed herself. He should not forgive that. That pompous idiocy needs to be corrected. So when you have anger and sad and all that, and sadness and pain, you have to identify the source, evaluate the integrity of it, and then take action. You don't sit around not taking action and just wish for it to go away. Samurai says, if someone that did wrong don't restore the good or don't apologize, she shouldn't be forgiven. Just for our own inner peace, we should forgive anything. No, they shouldn't be forgiven. But that doesn't mean that you will feel angry about it. But for your own inner peace, you have to identify. Somebody did something wrong to me. I'm angry at them. They should be punished. Do I really need to be angry? Insofar as I can punish them, then the anger is useful. But if I can't punish them, then the anger is just causing me discomfort. I can let go of the anger, but not let go of the fact that they need to be punished. And if the opportunity arises to punish them, then the anger can return. This is what is. The cult of forgiveness is dumb. You're being exploited by the cult of forgiveness. Because people needing forgiveness are exploiting you. Forgive, forgive, forgive. I think these people need a lot of forgiveness but are too proud to ask for it. So they want you to just automatically forgive. But you don't need to wear yourself down by carrying the anger. So you need to master the anger. To be able to say, all right, this person deserves my anger, but it's not relevant right now. Somehow or another, they'll get punished for it. Isn't this also what Brahma told Daksha? Do you really need to punish them directly, or aren't their deeds actually going to create a destiny for them which punishes them? This is how one of the things that he said to Shiva to make sure that his anger was gone. You don't need to personally punish them. Maybe they'll get punished. Their stupidity, their mentality will put them into hell. Their world becomes hell because of their mentality. That's their punishment. Do you need to get wrapped up in it by punishing them? If you feel that you do, then you have to carry this anger the whole time. If you feel that you can let go and let their destiny punish them, then you don't have to carry that anger anymore. That anger is difficult to carry. It uses up your resources. So letting go is good. But forgiving people that don't deserve forgiveness is not good. Anger is not a cover emotion for sadness. They're two different emotions. Anger is the emotion that results when somebody does wrong. Sadness is the emotion that results when something has been lost. All right. This is very, very good. Nice session we had here today. I will see you again in a couple of days. I let go.